child pornography history walked after 7 years. Not only did that, he also didn't think. Sir, this is budget fiscal treasurer. I'm sorry. He tweaked me yesterday.
That camera thing woke her up over there, didn't it?
Not yet.
Yeah, thank God. It says the meeting will begin
Oh,
shortly.
it's on now.
Well, thanks, Wes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
We don't have any video.
All right. It's 11 o'clock. Appreciate all the members that are here. Do we have anybody on Zoom? We got some on Zoom too. Okay. We've got an interesting bill here today of West Cantrell's and 842. I'll let you go ahead and get started, Mr. Representative Cantrell.
Chairman Hawkins, am I here?
It is.
Yeah, maybe two. Do your button.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'll try to be brief, but this does require a little bit of background. When I got elected in 2014, I didn't have the sense to ask how much we got paid for this job. And so after I got elected and I found out, to be honest, I found it embarrassing. So I made a commitment in 2015 that on my last term, I was going to introduce legislation to try to address this problem at a time where it would not personally benefit me, because that's not what this is about. This is about a fair pay scale for the amount of work that our legislators do. So last year was the beginning of my last term, so I introduced a bill. It was House Bill 675, bipartisan. The leadership made me the chair of a working committee on public compensation. And so we had enthusiastic bipartisan support for that bill. It got out of rules. It was real close to getting to the floor. But the problem is the awkwardness of the fact that the only people who can raise our pay is us. And the optics of that is not great. Even though we only make $17,000 a year, the way the headline would be worded in the paper would make us look really bad. So the General Assembly has not had the appetite to raise its own pay since the 1990s. In 2008, there was a COLA adjustment. Our base pay is $16,200. The COLA in 2008 raised it to $17,342. And we haven't touched it since then. The Senate had a bill last year that had bipartisan support, but when it got to the floor, people got, for whatever reason, I'm not going to guess motives, but the bill got killed on the floor, and that was right when we were considering putting the bill I had last year on the floor. So this year I come to you with a little bit different approach. This is a constitutional amendment. In Georgia, we have a state commission on compensation. It was established, I think, 5 years ago. They have recommended every year a raise for legislators, and we have ignored their recommendation every time they've made it. Several other states have the same type of commissions and have raised their legislator pay using the recommendation of those commissions, but we've failed to do so. 9 other states have tied their pay to state employee pay plans. 5 states have tied their pay to median household income. The National Conference for State Legislators has basically studied all the state legislatures across the country, and Georgia ranks in the middle as far as the amount of work involved in what we do. And basically they said that the average Georgia legislator works the equivalent of a little bit more than 2/3 of a full-time job. The highest level is 80% or more, but we're at 2/3 or more. So basically they're saying that it's impossible to, we have to get another, obviously we have to have another way to make money besides working in the General Assembly. The average pay for the states in our range that are most equivalent to us is $41,000. And that was in 2014 and 2015. That's the latest numbers that I have. Last year, our neighbors to the west of us, Alabama, they have 30 legislative days per year, and their salary was $51,734 per person. They're paid 100% of the average median household income of their state. And this was a result of a constitutional amendment that they passed about a decade ago. The advantage they have over us is that when they passed this constitutional amendment, it was actually a pay cut. They took a pay cut, so the state was enthusiastic about embracing cutting their pay. It was in the 40s, but every year as the median income of Alabama has gone up, the pay of the legislators has gone up as well. So the discrepancy and the unfairness of Georgia legislators that work a lot harder than our friends in Alabama, making 1/3 of what they make is beyond the pale for me. So what HR 842 does is it proposes a constitutional amendment, but it's less aggressive than what our friends in Alabama did. It would remove the ability of the General Assembly to raise their own pay and set our pay at 60% of the median household income in our state. Right now, the median household income in Georgia is around 60. It's just south of 60. So we'd be looking at about a $36,000 per annual salary. The pay would be adjusted every 2 years. So as Georgians do better, the members of the General Assembly would do better. And we would never have to revisit this issue again because the salary would rise and fall based upon that average. The ballot question, if you want to take a look at the actual resolution, lines 18 through 22 basically tell you what it's going to do, raising it to 60%. It also gives the responsibility of the Department of Labor to determine what the median income is each time we have to set the salary every 2 years. Then it also provides for it to make sure we didn't change anything about leadership positions, getting a supplement, the speaker, those kind of things. That's in lines 23 through 26. And then lines 27 through 29 basically make sure that the per diems and mileage reimbursement and all that is unaffected by this constitutional amendment. And then you can see down at line 34 what the language would be on the ballot. It would say, shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended to restrict the ability of the General Assembly to increase the salary of state senators and representatives and establish a standard salary for such individuals equal to 60% of the median household income in Georgia? So that would be the question on the ballot, and it would be up to Georgians to decide whether or not that was a fair pay scale for the General Assembly or not.
Thank you so much for all the research you've done on this.
Well, I
It's
failed to
very
mention this report. When I was entering into my last term, I asked the Budget and Research Office to put together this report for me to kind of
Right.
give me the information that I needed to write the first bill and then to write this.
I appreciate that.
amendment.
I'm sort of from the old school. When I started this, I guess my mind was like a lot of folks out there in the public, and that was, we worked for 3 months at the Capitol, and that's what our salary was for. And the other months, we just didn't get paid. And that's so, but the checks would come in unseen. I never see them. So like a school teacher, so my perception was, well, okay, it's that's okay. I mean, it seems like a reasonable pay for 3 months. But now that I've been here 14 years, it really, the reality is we're working all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't claim per diems. I know none of us claim per diems because someone may come to our office and talk for a couple hours, or we go out for a couple hours and have lunch or speak to a group, and none of us do that. But at the end of the year, that adds up to weeks of time.
Mhm. The way we do it, Mr. Chair, is it just so limits how many Georgians can actually serve in the General
Right.
Assembly. I mean, it
Yeah.
cuts it down.
Yeah.
And part of my goal, well, when you look around the chamber, I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions or anything, but it's really made up of the haves and the have-nots. It's people that are retired. It's people that have other sources of income. or it's people that don't have anything at all and they're just want to serve. I think I'd like to see a school teacher be able to serve in the General Assembly. I'd like to see a police officer be able to serve in the General Assembly. And I think
Right.
until we get that salary number up, at least in range
Right.
of 40, 43, 45, we're never going to have a lot of rank and file Georgians serving in the General Assembly. And I'd love for them to say, how am I take a season of my life? I'm going to spend 6, 8 years and then I can go back. But it doesn't break me financially to
Right.
serve my state.
Well, you got a good point, because I tell you, you look around, we don't have a lot of healthcare folks in General Assembly. And the reason why is because we take 3 months out of our practice. We don't have a practice when we come
Mhm.
back. So that means we have to have, just like in law, I'm sure, and you got to have partners that come in. And my son came in, and now I'm the junior partner. And so essentially 14 years has cost over half of my income. But luckily I got a wife that says, go get them.
Yeah.
Got to go get them.
Well, since I've been here, a lot of the best and the brightest have left because they simply couldn't afford to stay.
It's tough. All right. I'm going to hush up. Josh McLaurin, Representative McLaurin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what a topic. I mean, I guess we could all go on about this for a long time, right? Appreciate you doing this. I know that if I veer at all from the proposal before us, you can hold up text messages where you show, look, you already agreed with me about the number 60 and all that. So Wes can pin me to a wall on that. But what I do want to get into is maybe one or two thoughts regarding the structure of this, because I think a couple of topics you've raised, which are important, are the politics of this type of vote, right?
Mhm.
Very difficult to vote to raise your own salary. In fact, when our good leader, Bob Trammell, led us Democrats off a cliff in the salary vote a year or two ago,
Oh, yeah.
and that was all the mail in my campaign season. One of the things I want to tell voters, I'm not going to spend money to tell them, is I didn't take any of my 10 committee of one days that year, which is basically equivalent, all told, to the amount of hit that we took. And so I found my own way to save the money, right? Notwithstanding the decrease. Well, on top of the decrease. But I guess my point is the politics are huge, but also the policy is huge, right? Which is we need to incent people to serve.
Mhm.
So one thing I wonder is the 60% number. While I don't think that's necessarily an objectionable number, I have to spend more time thinking about it. If we constitutionalize the 60% number, does that tie our hands too much? And the reason I ask is because there may come a time when the General Assembly either expands its functions, maybe, we put structures in place. And I don't know how much of this would have to be constitutional, but where we'd have to go back in anyway, but basically to recognize the amount of work we do, not just from an informal perspective, but structurally as an institution. And if we do that, one thing I worry about is you put the 60% number in the Constitution. Are we going to just do kind of what we flirt with doing anyway, which is sort of squeeze all the other compensation into per diem or other less accountable, less
Right.
transparent mechanisms, right?
Mhm.
As opposed to leaving the General Assembly the option to increase relative to median income and make it transparent what they're doing. So my thought would be, and let me know if you've thought about this, to go ahead and put median income in the Constitution, that somehow the annual salary that is calculated in relation to, or some language like that, median household income, subject to, a general bill that sets the percent number, right, which can be adjusted as time goes on, because the political pressure will still be there for something like that.
Yeah, I just think for me, the best predictor of the future is the past. And we've not had the appetite to do that in, 25 years. So I think, I can't see that appetite changing much. It would make the threshold difficult, but it would have an automatic, escalator in it, if you will, as Georgians do better. So the messaging on that is very positive to me. Hey, as we make good policy for Georgia and you guys do better, we do a little better too. I don't know, 60% is kind of, random a little bit. I mean, if you went by the study, you'd say 67% at minimally, because that's what they're saying is the floor of what we're doing. They saying the legislators work at least 2/3 of the equivalent of a full-time job.
So let me ask you this. What if you put in, and
I just don't think we would do it.
Get a little technical. I mean, what if we put in something like calculated in relation to median household income, and, provided that in the General Assembly session 2023, the legislature shall pass as an initial matter legislation that picks the percentage? I mean, that's the only question I've got for you, because I would love to leave room for political will to operate at some future time that we're not.
I don't think that's constitutional, what you just asked to do, to obligate a future,
Future statute,
Yeah.
like enabling legislation.
Right. I don't
Okay.
think we can do that.
Okay.
I wouldn't oppose it, but I don't think we can do that.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying and I have sympathy for it. But I also, it's like, just looking around and studying this thing, I don't see that we're going to do it the way you're saying. I don't think that ever happens.
Well, I'm just floating that because, just trying to think about it.
I'm not sure that the public would be able to follow that. No, I'm serious. I'm not.
That would be a
I'm
tough
being- not
question.
being
Would be.
detrimental of the public.
And it would also make the public, I think it would make a voter suspicious.
Right,
Well, why aren't they telling me how much?
right.
Are they setting me up for, a big number?
I got too much trust in Representative Cantrell. That's my problem. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Representative Frazier.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
I got you.
Chairman Hawkins, and thank you.
I'm not sure what
You can't hear?
I don't know if your mic's on. I got everything pressed. Is it? Okay.
It's Penny. It's
It's you.
Penny, you guys. It's okay. Thank you so much for bringing this. This is my 16th year, and so I've had no problem asking for a raise because I know the work that I do. I can't speak for all the legislators, but the majority of us really do work, and we call it off season. And I go home, I come up here to get rest.
Yeah.
And there's no rest here. So my question to you is on line 25. It says such salary supplements may vary in amount based on the duties required of the elective office. Now, my colleague here to the right just told you that, the work that we do, we can sit here and break down the work. I can tell you what I do in a week time. This is a constitutional amendment, and we want folks to give us a raise because we work very hard. The word part-time, I don't ever want to hear that word again because this is not a part-time job. And thank you for not having it anywhere on this bill. But the point is this, we need to have a list of what we do just to have that conversation. We can talk about committee process. We can talk, but we never talk about the 10 steps of getting a bill prepared.
Yeah.
And the time that it takes to get that done. And so the public doesn't know that. And so they will ask, well, so why do they need a raise? They only up there 40 days a week.
Right.
So is there anywhere, and I'm sure, I know this is your ask for the money, but we need to have some talking points later on, and have someone analyze and break down exactly what we do here in the General Assembly. Now, I can do it on my own when I go back to my vote, but I think we need to all be on the same page as to say why we're asking for this long time raise that should have been done 2 years ago, election year. So this is election year. And you notice we always dodge election years.
I tried to dodge it last year.
But I have colleagues that are in Alabama and even Maryland who gets double that amount
Right.
of salary. That is actually their full-time jobs. And it's based upon their median income too. So that's my concern. I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you had the courage to do this. Although, I know you're on your way out, but I appreciate you doing this because
And I hear you.
we need it.
It's a heavy lift because it's a constitutional amendment. So it'll take 2/3 of both chambers to get this done. And if we were able to get it done, then we would need to do exactly what you're saying to make sure that Georgians understand what the average legislator does and what's all involved in that job and how hard it is.
Yeah, and then I think
During
they truly
session and out of
appreciate us,
session.
yeah.
So,
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing this.
I think Representative Frazier makes a good point. I guess when I look at it from a kid's point, seeing my father go through politics and all, and I always heard them say that we are citizen legislators. And that was a big point. That means we work, we come up here and we go back home and work. So we're not paid politicians. And Gloria's point though, if you divide it at what we get now in 3 months, it'd be $4,000 a month. That's less. $4,000 a month, is less than some states are giving their legislators every month. I mean, you know, that's 48,000. There
Yeah.
are people on here making more than that. So I think, to your point, threading the needle of how this is presented to the public is going to be important.
And that had a lot to do with picking 60%, as I was trying to, I was
yeah,
trying to pick something that would be palatable.
I appreciate your challenge.
I think it ought to be higher than that personally. but-
Representative Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess thinking through the dates, so is your thought that this would be on the ballot this year?
Yes,
So it would be on the ballot this year, but the salary would take effect in 25.
correct.
So for 24, so I guess I'm trying to think how that, so the Constitution said the salary is going to be set at 60%. But if you change it to 60%, how are we still paid at the same next term?
Because it doesn't go into effect until 23. I mean, 25.
But you've changed, I'm trying to
Because-
follow because I want to make sure the dates, because
because
if you change the Constitution.
If
the
you,
In
ch-
the middle of a fiscal year.
because if you changed it, if it would not give that, we wouldn't have time to budget for it. You know, because January 1, this would change it in November. January 1, it would have to go into effect. If it did not go into effect until, you could do it midterm, I guess,
I
but
guess let me add, so
it'd be
legislative
messy.
council, I'm going to ask them to pay attention because if you change the Constitution, well, I'm thinking you change the Constitution. The Constitution now says as effective as of this date, you have to be paid this amount. So if you change the Constitution, how can you have something that legislatively overrides that change in the Constitution is my question. Because once the Constitution takes effect, you have to pay them 60%.
right. Why
It
would you
doesn't-
want to override it? I mean,
Was
you
it-
have to override it the same way we're overriding it now by,
Well,
with
you're
the constitutional
enabling, you're
amendment.
enabling the legislation. I guess that's a question. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but if you change the Constitution and says it has to be 60%, how do we then pay ourselves less than 60%? So can this take effect January 2025? I guess the question is, can the salary not take effect until 2025 if you change the Constitution as of January 2023?
You're asking could this be effective sooner?
No. Is it okay to be effective later? I mean, is it acceptable to be effective later because you change the Constitution, so you have to pay 60%?
Right, because it would be on and after that date, so there's kind of a,
Yeah, let me think through that one.
Yeah, what? I don't understand.
I would feel better change to 2023 because really it's not impacting the people. It's impacting people that are being elected the next year. So I don't see the reason for making it 2025. I'm not saying
I don't have a problem with that personally, just in conversations with budgeting folks and with Ledge Council. The thought was that, well, it won't be budgeted for. So it's an unbudgeted mandate, basically. If we made it effective 2023, they would retroactively then have to budget for
Yeah.
it. So it just creates kind of
You
know,
could do
gums it up a little bit.
2024, but July.
we could do
back in
24.
July of 24. So we got to,
Okay.
it's in the fiscal year.
We could do that.
Clear.
We could change the effective date
Yeah.
to the next time after so we give time to the budget to be approved.
No, we could change it to July 1,
Right.
2023.
Well,
Yeah. 'cause
no,
it's-
we're budgeted for 23 now. I mean, essentially the 23 budget's put together. We can't go 23. We can go
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
January 1 of 24
So all
instead
our
of January 1 of
funding is-
25.
Yeah, yeah.
So be a midterm
But I'm
raise.
still stuck on the date. I don't know how you pay less than what the Constitution says you have to pay.
But we're budgeting for 23 right now. For this to be effective.
Yeah, I
you
see what
gotta
you're
get the
saying.
numbers
Yeah,
for
I'm
fiscal notes.
let me think
That's
through that
awful
over.
quick.
I didn't mean to,
Sure,
not
we
that
do
I'm
that with other
asking to push
things.
it up, but I'm just thinking through that. I just am struggling with the fact that the Constitution says you have to pay this, but you're paying less than that.
For that period of time.
For that period of time.
Till it
So-
becomes effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting thought.
I just don't know how that works. I like the 60. I think
Go
the
ahead and do
60%
it
makes
and
sense.
All right,
let them
all
figure it out.
Yeah. No, thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Mr.
Hey,
Chairman.
let me get some of these other questions. Okay, Representative Houston, you're on.
Thank you, Lori, thank you for what you say. And one other thing too, I don't know, as far as the 10 committee days, there's not enough committee days when you're representing 3 counties and 10 cities. I don't know what you did this past weekend, but I could have had a committee day Friday and Saturday. I had to be in Tifton 2 days. And Gerald Green, that represents 9 counties, who goes to more things than anybody I've ever seen. Just going to it just really takes it. Now, for Gloria and I, this is our hobby. Because we don't get paid enough.
Don't tell my wife this is my hobby.
Our China, this is my hobby. But I think when you ask these school children how much we get paid, if you've ever had some kids come up and say, how much do you think we get paid? They think we're getting paid like we do in Washington.
Yeah.
They have no clue.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
do it because we want to serve, but I want everybody to be able to serve. And we have had a school teacher recently, Amy Carter.
Yeah,
was a
I
school
remember.
teacher.
Right.
And I want everybody that wants to serve to be able to serve.
The setback is we'll have smart people willing to come up here and we may all be unelected.
Well, we need some common sense every once in a
I
while.
agree. That was
Every once in a while.
Representative Yerda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a difficult question, and it is a quandary. And it's not only a quandary here, but in local government. I served as mayor for 18 years and went in on the same salary as I left, so we never gave, and we had the privilege of giving ourselves raises also. Also, the General Assembly could do that.
yeah.
But we never went that route. But, honestly, I would think a lot of the public would think 60% of the median household income would be a pay cut.
Yeah, they probably would.
I mean,
Maybe they'd be likely to vote for it.
but that being said, you do get the other side, the 40, I've got even supporters that say, well, y'all work 40 days, that's $400 a day,
Right,
that's pretty
right.
good money. So I agree with what you're saying. There needs to be something done to attract more people. It's difficult. Basically what you said, you have to be retired, have partners in your law practice. I've got a small business. A lot of it falls on my wife, so it's difficult to serve, and to open it up to other people would be a positive thing that might not be able to serve at this time.
Takes a wonderful spouse too.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Representative Wilkins. Oh, no, McLaurin. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, again. So I want to preview the shenanigans that I'm going to cause during the formal voting on this bill and see if it's the will of the committee. The author acknowledged it might even need to be higher than 60. The people, at least with the badges on, are crying out for some sort of relief. So given, and this is really the main point, given that the rationale that the author had for going down this road was an analysis of work actually done that put the number at about 2/3.
Mhm.
The shenanigans I'm going to propose during formal activity on the bill is to modify to change from 60 to 2/3 and use the words 2/3 instead of a number.
Okay, I couldn't.
Mhm. And that's to sort of keep in line with every goal you've got.
Well, I'd be very open to an amendment to do that.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
If y'all think that can actually, it's the possible, the art of the possible.
That's a-
Thank you. I will say this. I think the author correctly worked with legislative counsel to ask the question of the public, should the Constitution be amended to restrict our ability? I think that the author is framing this correctly for a vote. So, given again what Representative Yerda said about what I think people would probably expect if you ask them out of, some people think that we make Congress money, 180
Correct.
grand a year. And I'm like, divide by 10, right? So I think on the margins, we should be, if we're going to do it at all, I think we should be safe in knowing that the public is probably behind, again, investing in the most basic operations of government, right?
Right.
I like your thoughts about 2/3.
Yeah.
I think that that's a lot easier to understand than 60%. Seems kind of random.
Right.
All right. We have questions online with our Zoomers. Representative Gilligan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate you bringing this, Representative Cantrell, but I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So one of the things is, of course, we know that there are no restrictions on the number of per diem days. How does that affect the per diem amount that would be received by our representatives and senators? Should this pass?
It doesn't affect that, Representative Gilligan, that those would remain under the same policy and standards that they are currently.
So there's no difference in the formula for how
Correct.
much.
Yeah,
And
we
therefore there's,
tried to stay away from all that.
okay. And then the next question would have to be for some of our members. That means that they could really claim a per diem day every day that they're not in session. Is there any way to provide more visibility?
Current policy restricts that.
I'm sorry?
No.
I didn't hear you.
We would operate on the same restrictions that we currently have, which I think is 10 committee of one. And I think the speaker's office has some latitude to determine what that policy is on each year. Isn't that correct?
Right. The committee does.
There's a committee that does that. So there's an accountability structure for that already, and that would not change or be affected in any way by this resolution.
So my final question would be, is there a way to increase the visibility on the number of per diem days that some of our leaders have taken in the past?
What?
Well, okay, so I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, that we've had some leaders in some of our parties who have taken a sizable number of per diem days, and it was difficult to find that information out. Is there any way to add more visibility?
Well, all you got to do is go to the office and pull up somebody's record. That's not hard to find out. But when you take your committee of one days, you have to write down what you did for that committee of one day. But there are a lot of people that are chairman of committees and have other obligations that are given more days because they have to do more work. Now, if you want to check on somebody, you can go up to the fiscal office, and I'm sure you can check on anybody. It's public record. So we're not trying to hide anything.
That's really what I wanted to get to, Chairman Houston. So thank you for.
I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything. It's open record. And 10 days, really, if you're a rural representative and represent a whole bunch of counties and cities, that is not enough. Now, I don't know where you live, and how many counties you represent, but 10 is not enough for me. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Representative Clark.
Houston,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Cantrell, for bringing this bill. I really do like it. Similar to the last question, I did want to ask how this affects qualifying. We have qualifying coming up, and it's my understanding that the qualifying fee is connected to the amount that we are paid. And so how would this affect qualifying fees? And how would this affect when we determine qualifying fees?
Does anybody know the answer to that? I don't think it's connected to our pay, is it?
I don't think it is. I think that's established. It was established by the parties. Go ahead.
Representative Clark, some offices are connected at a certain percentage of the salary. The legislature is not one of those. So ours is a flat fee that does not change.
And also, this legislation is not going to go into effect till the active date. So it's not going to affect this period.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on. I've got Representative Singleton next.
yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I want to thank Representative Cantrell for bringing this issue. We've been talking about it for a while. I will tell you that when I first ran for office 3 years ago, I was completely opposed to raising the salary. In fact, it was brought up in one of our debates. Because I believed in the citizen legislature, and my opinion has changed completely since doing it. And
Surprise, surprise.
right. Kind of to the previous question that just got a little heated. I'm not sure why, but I mean, I will tell you, I'm not a chairman, as you all well know. In 10 days, committee of one is not sufficient for me, and I only represent 2 counties. And So I think this is, and to me, really what it's about. And the reason I've talked to Wes about it so much is you get what you pay for. And obviously present company excluded, you're all very, very talented people. But in general, you can't expect to recruit talent and open the pool to have a very diverse workforce that represents the people of Georgia, because Georgia is a very diverse and talented state. And I think that we're really hurting on our ability to have a variance in representation because of, frankly, our salary. There are people that just don't, it's great to have a teacher every now and then, and a firefighter and a retired, this or that can go do it. But most of those situations, it's because they have a spouse or a significant other that is able to share the load, financially burden it, and it's not sufficient for them. So my questions to Wes, my two questions that I would love to see in this is, one, my first question, Wes, would be, do you really think that the political cost is going to be significantly greater at 100% of median income versus 2/3 of median income? It feels like the argument in the battle is going to be pretty much exactly the same, even though it's a lower number, because you still have an education required for the public. And my second question is, Congress has mastered the giving themselves pay raises without doing that, because they just do it through the congressional MRA, and they increase the size of their staff and what they can compensate their staff. Has there been any discussion? Everybody up here rails about how, lobbyists run the building because they're full-time while everyone else is part-time. Has there been any discussion about increasing the ability for individual legislators to maybe get some funding for a part-time or an assisting staff, maybe reducing their workload and not necessarily being a direct compensation to them? And I don't worry about a back and forth. I'll end my questions there, and I appreciate the chance to ask questions, and I appreciate you for bringing this, Wes.
Okay. As to question number one, I would say that there's no political cost to this because the voters of Georgia will decide. So we're putting it in their, so I do believe personally, that's why the bill's at 60%. I do believe that if it went at 100%, there will be significant blowback about it not being a full-time job. I don't think the voters would vote for that. I think I'm trying to thread the needle here for what gives a very fair raise. It's not where it ought to be. I'm willing to acknowledge that. But when we're starting at 17, you can imagine the headlines now. They're going to say, they want us to double their pay, is the way it's going to be worded. And that's going to be a tough messaging battle for us to fight against. So I do think we're in the right range, 60 to 2/3. A lot of people have told me 50% is the right number. I came in with 60, kind of negotiating because I was concerned that the committee was going to want me to go down to 50. And I'm willing to do that if that's the will of the committee. As to the second question, that's a completely different topic. Staffing is a problem. We all acknowledge that. We don't have staff. People, you get the emails like I do. Could Representative Cantrell or his staff, do this? And I'm like, yeah, I am my staff. You're talking to them, So some people have volunteers. Some people are better at recruiting interns. Those that live close to the Capitol have a significant advantage in that regard because they have people that live close by. It's not fair. We ought to have a budget for more staff, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I know it was going to go back and forth, but I appreciate those answers, Wes. And I know that this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I think that there would be an appetite if we would to go in at 100%, if we'd be willing to put it in the same legislation as term limits legislation, which is wildly popular across the state. Just throwing that out there.
All right.
I hear you.
Representative Gamble. Representative Gamble, you still on?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm here. I appreciate, thank you for recognizing me. And I appreciate Representative Cantrell bringing this bill. I just wanted a clarification, and I'm not sure if Ledge Council is there, but are we sure that the $400 qualifying fee is not tied to 3% of our salary like the other constitutional officers are?
You know,
I need to look it up to guarantee, but I don't believe it is. I think it's less.
yeah.
Well, do the math.
our
What's
legis-
3% of 16.2?
Yeah, yeah.
400 divided by 3% it's always been that, but even $400.
Yeah.
At 3% would be 13,333.
Again, this is going to come in a year to 2 years down the road. If there is an effect, it may raise it. We don't know, but we can handle that when that time comes. I don't think it'd be. a
Okay.
precipitous
Thank
raise.
you.
All right. Representative Jenkins.
Yes, sir. I just want to, I think some of these points have already been made, but I just want to emphasize one thing that rhetoric that doesn't sound good to me, and I think doesn't sound good to a lot of people, is speaking of this in terms of what we deserve. Because it can be said we really don't deserve anything, but by keeping our pay so low, we're really taking a penny wise, pound foolish approach to this problem. I'm one of those, I can't quit my job. I'm going to be clocking into work 8 o'clock tonight. I'll clock out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be in the chamber. When I sit in that chamber, I got people on all sides of me with laptops open, doing their jobs, paying their bills while they're trying to serve their community. And in the end, the state of Georgia suffers. We could serve our communities much better, if we were compensated at a rate that we could, that we could support ourselves while we're doing this public service. And as people have already said, we'll be able to attract people to this that may not be able to serve now, that our General Assembly needs so badly.
Great
Okay.
points, Representative Jenkins.
Well, I will say personally though, I've got my laptop open and I'm not doing my job, and a lot of people sitting around me are reading bills on a laptop. That's what I'm doing. I'm answering emails that I got at 4 o'clock in the morning. So not all of us are working on those laptops. But anyway, thank you for your question. Frazier, Representative Frazier.
Yes, sir. I
Thank
just
you.
have one last question, Mr. Chairman. Is the current, in the event that this legislation, this constitutional amendment does not pass, does the current statute still stay in place?
What was the very last part of that? In the
Current
event that it
statute
doesn't
stay in
pass.
place. Yeah. Current statute would stay in place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be unaffected.
Representative Wilkins, your light's blinking. You still got a question? You through? Okay. Looks like you've come to an end here. How you feel?
Feel great.
Yeah.
Feel like I
This
deserve a
is a
raise.
hearing only today. Oh, Clark. Okay, excuse me. Representative Clark's back on. Go ahead, Representative Clark.
Hi, yes, and I know that this wouldn't go into effect until later. So this question is definitely one that we don't have to think about today. But we talked a lot about how this will enable other people that have largely felt like they can't participate in the process to feel a little bit more empowered to participate. And so I just quickly pulled over. So I was not driving at the moment. And I looked up the law, and as I see it, or as I read it, it is our pay is one of the ones that is tied to the 3% of our salary. So I do think that when we do this, yes, we are definitely in need of a raise. I'm 100% in support of that. But we also need to recognize that that will also create maybe a barrier of entry into this process, because the qualifying fee will likely go up. If I read the law correctly, I was reading very quickly as I pulled over to the side of the road. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
The code section, as I just showed legislative council, is 21-2-131. And if you go to paragraph A and B, they talk about 3%. You keep scrolling down to B2. It says, except that the fee for the members of the General Assembly shall be set at $400. So it's in that code section 21-2-131.
So it's set at 400.
It's
not a
set at
percent.
400. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
McLaurin.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is proper procedural posture since today's hearing only, but if it is the will of the chairman, I'd make an amendment or proposed amendment today in accordance with the will of the committee, unless the preference is to wait for a vote.
Okay, this is a hearing only today, and I would ask the author of the bill, do you want to consider amendments, or would you rather be offline and work with some of the members of the committee and come back with a substitute bill?
That would probably be a better approach to
Okay.
work on it offline
That works.
and come back maybe next week with a sub.
Right, okay. So we will meet again next week and we will take a vote. Okay, is that good with everybody? All right, thank y'all so much for coming. Appreciate your input and I hope y'all have a great day. Now,